Buzzwords continue to take over the B2B marketing industry today, with a growing list that now includes terms like ABM and intent. But they're buzzing for a lot of good reasons, as they can be resources for successful content marketing campaigns when implemented really effectively. On today's episode, our guest cuts through the noise of those terms, debates ABM versus contextual marketing, shares real examples, and tells us that if you create the right content, the right people will come. Prophetic, and I'm very excited to get into that, but I think it is a little easier said than to be done, of course. So we're going to deep dive into how you can make it happen and implement these effective content marketing strategies in your go-to-market today. So thank you for tuning in for a great discussion on go-to-market innovators. Let's dive in. Welcome, everybody, and welcome to today's guest, Michael Brenner. Michael is the CEO and founder of Marketing Insider Group, an international keynote speaker, and an author. He has worked in leadership positions in sales and marketing for global brands like SAP and Nielsen, as well as for startups. So today, Michael is working to help build successful content marketing programs for leading brands and startups alike. Excited to have you with us today on GTM Innovators, Michael.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So we've covered a lot of ground as we've known each other for many years now. And as we were reconnecting in advance of the episode, we started getting in on how B2B marketing is continuing to evolve. And ABM's been a buzzword long time. Now intent feels like it's overtaken ABM as that thing that every marketer and now increasingly every sales leader needs to be thinking about, learning about, and being challenged, like, how are you using this? So I'm excited to talk because you actually have a little bit of a contrarian perspective when it comes to the most effective ways to target with content specifically. Can you share what those contrarian opinions are?
Yeah, I mean, I don't call myself a contrarian. You gave me that label, so I just want to call that out right from the start. But and I'm fine with it, by the way. But yeah, I mean, I think it really, for me, just gets to the heart of marketing. The heart of marketing is to drive, acquire new customers. And we talk about content marketing as this new thing, but it's really just a new definition of marketing. Because I always love to say, if marketing has a marketing problem, if you ask most people what marketing is, they're going to say it's an ad. And it's the thing they saw on the Super Bowl. It's the banner at Times Square. It's something that's intended to try to interrupt you. It's generally, consumer brand focused. I mean, I'd love to be Nike and Apple, but unfortunately, most of us are not. And so, I think we talk about sort of, what is marketing? Well, to begin with, you need to talk about, well, how do we attract and acquire new customers? Well, the best way to do that is not with ads. And that's the thing most people think marketing is. The best way to do that is with things that people actually want. That's why we call it content marketing, because it's really just a new definition for marketing, to create things that people actually want. Content, videos, helpful how-tos. How do we create things that sort of align to the buyer journey before somebody's ready to say, I'm looking for a vendor and I need to know the price? And so I think, it just starts with just that definition. And an understanding that content marketing isn't really that different from marketing. We just need to call it that because too many people misunderstand what marketing is. But when we get into, like you said, the buzzwords, and I if I did roll my eyes when you brought them up, I apologize to, ABM and intent providers. But, to me, marketing should be a strategy. ABM is an approach. It's a tool. In many ways, it's a piece of software for most companies. Intent is data, very helpful data for sure. ABM can be an effective approach. But again, these are just tools and techniques and processes and approaches that should line up to the larger strategy of how do I most effectively acquire customers? And so again, the foundation, maybe the contrarian opinion, is it starts with having helpful content that attracts the right people to your business. And then we can use channels like ABM. We can use data like intent data to understand how do we convert and optimize the return on investment from our marketing spend. So again, I don't think that's contrarian. I think it's just common sense, but it does seem to fly in the face of, some of the events you go to. It's, 6 ABM approaches and 5 reasons you need intent data. How about we start with the strategy?
Yeah. And to me, maybe contrarian's the wrong word, maybe it's the right word, not sure. But the idea is so prevalent that targeted, targeted, targeted. That's the only way to do this. And I think what you are absolutely seeing in the real world that I do want to get into is like, no, that's not the case, right? It can work. It does work for some, but many companies, if not all companies, need to think a little bit differently about not just doing hyper targeted. So let's go there. Can you share some examples of when have you seen this more contextualized based approach work?
Yeah, you triggered my thought with the word targeted because
Hmm.
it's a topic I've been passionate about for 10 years. And I had to give a presentation when I was at SAP 10, almost 10 years ago that was titled "Why Targeted Content Isn't the Best Way to Reach Targeted Audiences." And so I'll give you the quick example of my own experience and then a quick client example. So I had the VP of sales for retail come to me and say, "Here's a brochure for retail. Go get me leads." I don't think it's going to work. Okay, fine. I'll run it through our marketing channels. Guess what? We didn't get many leads from it. But we had a white paper from Forrester that was like 6 approaches to creating a better customer experience, which wasn't specifically targeted to retailers, but retailers really care about customer experience.
Hmm.
At the time, it was a big issue, as retailers were really navigating online into e-commerce. We got more leads from that white paper in retail than the retail targeted white paper run on retail targeted industry trade publications. And so the point was targeted content isn't always the best way. Targeted channels aren't always the best way to reach the target. So you have to ask why. Well, I'm back to the marketing definition, not someone who's looking for ads targeting CEOs of marketing agencies. When I see that ad, I run from it. I definitely don't click on it. But when I see something that helps me understand how to run an agency better, I'm more likely to click on that. So it just kind of goes back to, again, what I think is common sense. That was 10 years ago. What about today? So we actually have a client who came to us and they said, "Hey, you've actually been more effective at finding the targeted accounts in our ABM list than our own approach at ABM. How are you doing that?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I didn't know who your target accounts were. We're not using ABM software. We're simply contextually targeting good content. We're trying to find people that are opting in to receive and to click on that content, and then we're retargeting those people with ads." And so, it was kind of amazing, and it actually turned into a 5, almost 6-figure investment, where the agency of the client is now a client. So think about that. The advertising agency of a large technology company who, is a client, the technology company is a client where we create content and we, promote it out to try to find audiences, is now a client of ours because we're better at finding their ABM list of targeted accounts than they were with their ABM approaches using, some of the platforms that some of your, audience might be interested in or looking at. So again, it's a little counterintuitive, but when you understand, and I know we'll probably get into sort of the steps, but the point is
Yeah.
when you understand how to target your audience with the challenges and the pain points and the issues that are important to them, they opt in, and that makes it more cost effective and
Mhm.
drives a higher return.
Yeah, I love that point about opting in. Like you're earning the right, you're earning and building the audience. And so I do want to go into the part about like how do you do this?
Hmm.
Right? You come in with a credible amount of expertise on this. So what are the steps that you advocate for that you think about when you're building a contextual content marketing program?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not that I have anything against ABM, but one of the things that worries me with any really shiny object, ABM has been one, intent is another, AI is an thing that people are jumping on is I think in all of the years I've been doing marketing and even when I was doing sales, the thing that worked the most every time was the thing that we did over time. So
Hmm.
consistency wins. The magic of compounding rates of return. Right? When is the best time to invest in your 401k? 20 years ago. Right? Like the whole point, or step number one, I think, for effective marketing strategy overall, and I want to pound this in to every CMO and CRO that I talk to, is consistency. So if you want to start building an effective program, realize that you needed to do it 20 years ago. or 2 years ago or 2 months ago, whatever the time frame is. It should be something that you're doing consistently over time. That's number one, is commit to that, knowing that it takes some time.
Hmm.
But the rates of return are compounded when they do. Number two is create marketing messages that are tuned into your audience, not tuned into what you want to sell. And that, again, that was the first lesson I learned as a salesperson. When I tried to sell, I wasn't effective. When I listened to what my buyers were interested in, and there were times when I didn't have something to offer them, and there are times when I did. And when I did, I was more effective at getting them to buy
Hmm.
it. Right. So just tune in more to your audience than to what you're trying to sell. Push versus pull, however you want to, kind of phrase that. Um, understanding that we do need to. People aren't just going to opt in, because they have warmth in their hearts. We do have to go out and find them, I think, sometimes. And so finding the watering holes is a term I think you like to use. Um, find those watering holes where they exist and where they live and where they, read and engage, and make sure that your marketing messages or, your content is placed there. And then the final point I'm just going to make, it's again a stupid obvious one, is just always ask, did the thing we did before, turn into some sort of return? And so the reason I ask that is, most of the content, I'll give you a quick example. The client I was referring to, they
Mhm.
spend about $5,000 a month on content for one of these programs. They spend about $5,000 a month on reach, on really contextually targeting that content. They spend about $50,000 a month on brand awareness advertising that drives less of a sort of a return of any kind of metric that they can measure, business outcomes. Significantly higher spend, significantly lower return. And so, again, I'm not saying advertising is bad. I'm not saying anything is bad. The point number four is measure the return of the things that you're doing, and invest more in the things that work, and maybe think about sunsetting the things that don't.
Yeah, and so I'd agree. I think there's a balance within here that you're certainly advocating for. I think there's a couple of points that you were talking through that I'd love to try to just dig a little bit deeper on. One of them was in the first examples you shared. There's material impact. There's ROI that contextual based content marketing can deliver in the here and the now, right? And that's part of what you were alluding to as you talked about the kind of 3 or 4 areas to think about and focus on as you're doing this. You made the statement of like you can get a return right now while you're building those compounding long-term returns. Can we just spend a little bit of time there? Because I think in the past we've talked about it of like there is a world of marrying the build the audience
Yeah.
with the data and the ABM lists that Intent and others can help build. Is like you want to build the audience. There's certain folks that are in market right now that you should be trying to build a relationship with. Can you talk a little bit about like how do you work with your clients to think about and articulate the return you can get right now so that a
Yeah.
CFO is not like, you know, forget about it. Like, I don't
Yep.
care about returns next year. I care about right now.
Yeah.
And then what role do you see, ABM lists where you're like, no, we're perfect fit for this type of company, and intent lists of like, these are the ones that are actually looking at you right now. Like, how do you see those two ideas playing out?
Yeah.
Short-term
Well,
ROI and
yep.
marrying ABM and intent into this strategy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think all three are completely related, and so what ABM can do is provide an opportunity to convert the right people quicker and better. Right. What
Hmm.
intent data can do is it can help you identify the folks that might be part of your ABM targeted list that are actually out there searching. Because buying committees are at large. We don't know everybody that works. We don't know who's influencing decisions. We don't know what consultants and agencies are working with our targeted list of accounts. And so the point is, and what we found with this, with this client example that I mentioned, we're not converting the people, right? Their ABM approach and their intent data is what's helping them convert. They're using nurturing strategies, which is maybe the fourth leg of the stool, if a stool has 4 legs. Right, is nurturing folks through that buyer journey. So contextual content marketing can really help you identify folks that are out there searching. ABM can help you identify how do we target the folks that are out there that we've already sort of found, and how do we get them to, sales enablement? How can we get them into the nurture streams that we've set up? And then how do we use intent data to identify the folks that are maybe outside of that ecosystem that we aren't aware of, that are interested, that are looking? And so it's really about pulling all of these things together.
Hmm.
To me, I think having a nurturing mindset is kind of the key, right? Is so how can we efficiently and effectively find folks that are, in a buyer's journey, and then nurturing is what's going to help you identify who's ready to buy right now. And so when we marry all of those four components, effective content marketing, account-based marketing and targeting the right people, intent-based and finding the people that are actually interested in buying, and nurturing them through the funnel, that's where the return on investment really starts to skyrocket.
Yeah. And so as you answer that, maybe part of the story as you're selling this internally to your company is that you have a potential issue at the starting point because you don't have the content and the audience yet. So that's where, an ABM list especially can be like, all right, well, this is an audience we should be relevant to. That helps you start building that audience up. But over time, to your point, that audience is coming to you. They're seeking you out as a destination, as a thought leader, so that whenever they do end up in market, they're already there. And then you just use the data that you're buying or creating yourself to kind of see like, okay, well, they're coming to us and they're in market. That's the home run.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. I mean,
content.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the content part. I'd love to go a little bit more on because I think you have just incredible expertise on this part, and that's the part that folks can't miss out on. Is like you're talking about. This is a customer first content strategy. Talk about what they care about. Don't talk about yourself. Don't
Mhm.
just sell your wares. So please feel free to jump in on the thought you had before, and I'd love to double back on like how do you think about developing great content as you're coaching and advising your clients today, and any brands you would mention that are doing an exceptional job at their content creation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the point I was just going to make was, ABM and intent are really almost like a yin and yang, right? ABM was we got the list, we're gonna find those elephants and hunt them down, and that didn't work. So they're like, okay, well maybe we should wait for see who hits our website and try to identify their intent. It's kind of like inbound, outbound, like it's like a repeat of that story. Well, content's really the thing that sort of mixes them together, and nurturing is the thing that brings it home. It's the hunt, it's the spear, if you will. And so that's, I think, how they all work together in a visual way. But the point about content, I always say if you could ask your audience one question, it should be, what are your biggest challenges? And
Mm,
every company out there should be writing content to those challenges. Um, I'm not a fan of a lot of money spent on personas, but if you're going to spend money on personas, just make sure that that question gets asked, because it's really the only question. The trends in your industry, the challenges by your audience, the pain points that they need to solve that aren't necessarily product based, but just they're job based. What keeps your target audience up at night? Those are the only insights you need in order to create an effective content plan. And we use SEO and keyword research and content modeling and all kinds of other fancy names for how to develop a content plan. But at the end of the day, it's just, what are your biggest challenges and how can I create content that solves that challenge?
yeah, you just started alluding to it. One of the things that I always want to make sure folks walk away is like, what is the technology that can help empower a strategy like this? So, what do you see, as some of the core technologies that you would want all your clients using that you're asking for access to when you start working with a new client to start getting at some of these insights and answering these key questions?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, persona documentation is great. I'm actually seeing some really interesting. I mean, we've gone this far. I don't even know if we mentioned AI. So, it's like, how could we talk this long without mentioning it? There is some interesting technology out there that's, driven by AI. There's a guy, I'm sure Andy Crestodina, who's done a whole sort of a session on how to use prompts in ChatGPT to generate really engaging and action-based persona information. So there are tools out there that I think could do that are AI driven. ABM and intent data are certainly important for sure. Nurturing mechanisms like, CRO, conversion rate optimization is just it's a skill set that's really hard to find, and it's generally
Mm.
people that understand the world of of landing pages and how to nurture and how to get people to move from one stage of the pipeline to another. Having the right analytics. I mean, all these things are important. And again, AI is being thrown at all of these problems now with all the investment, and there's plenty of tools out there, I think, and I'm not going to get into, picking winners, but there's certainly some great tools out there that are AI driven that can help do that.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you want to make any predictions, I'm all for it, but I won't put you on the spot to name who's going to be winning markets. The point that you just made, though, I'm with you on it. Is like each of these technologies is playing a role in helping in the process, but at the front end of it, know your audience, build content really well for what they care about, and then over time you're going to get increasing returns because they're going to be coming to you as a thought leader. I think there's a lot of research out there that supports your idea, and it's even better to hear that you have clients delivering an impact on this right now. So I'd be curious, as we think about wrapping up and saying, like, what else, right? Any other parting words of wisdom for our listeners that you think is especially critical for them to walk away from, today's conversation about contextual content marketing and understanding the role that ABM, intent data, and stuff can play in that process? Like, what else do you see that they should know?
Yeah, I mean, when I talk to CMOs and CROs today, the AI is like the first question out of their out of their mouths, and I've been cautioning people to say that there's a paradox to AI, and
Mm-hmm.
that paradox is that you can't imagine a world where everything is AI driven, because there's a backlash. In fact, in just the last week, I've seen three articles, three separate instances of backlash against AI.
Hmm.
Um, you know, uh, some examples. I think OpenAI is being sued for copyright infringement. Zoom got sued because it was using recordings in generating their own AI. There's a company that scraped people's books off the internet and used it to predict, sort of tone and language and all kinds of things. Anyway, the point is that the more technology and the more artificial intelligence and automation in general that we use, the more our audiences and customers and buyers are going to expect real people to show up in some way.
Hmm.
And so there is a backlash. CMOs who think that all of marketing is going to be done by AI really need to think about the human element. Even Google is saying, like, hey, sure, you can use AI to generate content, but it better showcase experience and expertise. And AI doesn't have experience or expertise. AI can't generate demand. It can't deliver demand. I asked ChatGPT to give me leads and it said it could. And then it said, well, maybe actually I can't. It can't. So I guess my parting words of wisdom is just to understand that AI, like any tool, can be useful and effective. But the counterbalance to that is we're going to need to be more empathetic, more customer driven, more human in the marketing messages and content that we create as we go forward.